The Clone Wars are coming to an end. Andor's heating up. And we've got our own Star Wars theories about sexual assault. We're just going for it. Why not? All that and more this week on your Star Wars Safe Space. Stick around. Hey, there we go. Hey there, Star Warriors. Welcome to Star Wars Safe Space, your non-toxic, low-sodium Star Wars show that doesn't make you feel bad for not knowing that George Lucas originally wanted Yoda to be played by a trained monkey wearing a mask and carrying a cane.
What could possibly go wrong?
Thank you, Frank Oz, for showing up. We appreciate you because, damn, that would have been awful. So whether you're a hardcore Star Wars fan or just a little Swarzy curious, this is your Star Wars Safe Space. We are the Circle of Nerds, and we do indeed love Star Wars, even if we don't always like it. So let's go around the room and meet the cast, shall we? So to my left, your right, star of stage and screen, it is the sensational Sherry.
Hey, glad to be here, everybody. Ready to talk some Star Wars.
Yeah, you are. And captain of the infamous Parma Flyer, it's Crash.
Hey, everybody, been through a long season. Let's lock those S-foils and get at it.
Man, it has kind of been a long season, hasn't it?
Yes.
A roller coaster for sure. And hailing from parts unknown, it's T to the Oni.
Welcome back to the galaxy, everybody. Let's get it going.
All righty. Good to go. So what are we doing here? Well, we are on a mission to watch all of the Star Wars TV shows and films in chronological order, breaking them down, connecting the dots, and learning a little bit more about Star Wars and maybe even a little bit about ourselves. So it would be warning to all you Star Warriors out there, there will be spoilers. And today we might have some spoilers about Andor Season 2. So be prepared for that. But before we get into any of this, should we run this trailer? Because Tony, you found that trailer. Crash. Have you seen it?
I saw it when it dropped at Star Wars Celebration, and I don't play a lot of games, but I was intrigued by the concept. So let's take a look, and we can talk about it on the other end.
All right, cool. Sherry, have you seen this yet? It's the trailer for Star Wars Zero Company.
I'm gonna say no, but you never know.
You never know.
TikTok has a lot of stuff.
That's true. You are a TikToker, aren't you?
Yes.
You are an avid TikToker.
Well, watcher.
A TikTok, yes, a tick watcher. I guess that would be yeah. All right, so let's do the thing. Here it is. Here we go.
When people talk about the Clone Wars, they talk about the big moments, the crisis points, planetary invasions, all-out assaults, cities bombed to rubble. Truth is, there's a war you don't see. The one fought in the shadows. The war beneath the war. A war that's won with the right strategy. Surveillance, ciphers, good old-fashioned sabotage. These aren't the heroes they tell stories about. They're professionals. Setting aside their differences to take on the impossible. But that's the job, and they get it done.
Okay. Okay.
Is it a game? or-
Okay. Yeah, it's a game.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a show. I got all excited about it.
Right. Oh,
Playing
sorry,
that
sorry.
game.
Yeah, like it looks like it could be a really cool show, right?
Right. I thought it was a show. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
No, but it's not. We've got. I haven't looked into this at all. So just based on what we saw, we've got a clone trooper, we've got a Jedi. It looks like we've got what appeared to be an Umbaran. Was that an Umbaran?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
It
'cause
is. It is.
we-
That's confirmed.
Okay.
Was
We
there
have
two troopers or just the one?
just
'Cause
the
it was-
one. We had a Mandalorian. The one was a
Oh, that was a
Mandalorian, and some scoundrelly smuggler saboteur looking fella. So
You guys, I don't play those games.
all right, that's all right. It's quite an interesting looking team. I'm sure there's going to be some banter between that Umbaran and the clone trooper. So I don't know.
And it's interesting. I was asking before the show, is this, I have a very limited gaming experience, but it's got a very D&D, what was that?
Turn-based.
Turn-based.
Turn-based. But
Turn-based
even like
combat.
that little game, was it Gauntlet, where you could choose your class? You could be a warrior, a wizard, a barbarian.
You are right.
And you play their skill set as best as you can, and you team up with other people playing the other ones. It's a very interesting game for people to sort of play to their personalities. If you want to be the sniper, be the sniper kind of a thing.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to pick a class, but it looks like you've got control of all was it 5 people on the team, I think. So you have control of the entire squad, it looks like. And I don't know if it's going to be multiplayer or not. We're a terrible news source.
Well, we're really not. I mean, if I thought it was a damn show.
So the quote unquote main character is a disgraced former Republic officer who's referred to as Hawks. And he is fully customizable. You can determine what his species is, his race, everything.
Which is why he's not on camera, so you can personalize him to fit your style.
Okay, that's cool.
Specifically says he can be among several different races, including Twi'lek, Togruta, or Zabrakian.
Oh, interesting. Is it multiplayer?
It doesn't say that, but my understanding is that it's single player strictly. Like just you controlling your team and going out and playing the storyline.
All right. And very XCOM-y. Looked
yeah.
And Sherry, you've seen that. The with the aliens and the little squad. I've played that a lot. Yeah.
So it just being with you for 33 years. I'm kind of a gamer by symbiosis.
By osmosis there. Yeah.
That's what it is.
They also make clear that at the start of the game, like you mentioned, there's an Umbaran and there's a former clone trooper there. And they make very clear that these people are all not going to be friends at the start of this. It's up to you to kind of build that and go from there. And the other thing that I'm intrigued by is that this is very similar to like the old Wing Commander games, where there's a storyline that you're playing through, but if you fail certain missions, it pretty much screws you over, where you can't get to necessarily the best ending because you're just down that path now. You lost this particular section, you can't go back.
Oh, all right. So there's some high stakes there. Those were good games too. The Wing Commander games were really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back in the day. So I don't know. Crash, you said you're not much of a gamer. Is this something you might play?
I'm not much of a gamer because I don't have a lot of time to commit to a game, but I was big on the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2 back in the day, but once they moved everything into online, where you had to team up with whoever was on on the internet at the time, I just want to sit in a tower and snipe scout troopers in the head or fly X-wings. You know, I got my thing. And the thing I like about this game is it looks like you can choose. You know how they were saying it's a strategy thing. You know, you position your team in the way you want, and then execute. So you're not stuck being just one character throughout the thing. You sort of have control over what the whole team does.
Yeah, it's very much like you had said earlier. It's very much like chess. It's very much like a chess game. So you set your pieces up. You try to strategize where you want to move them and hope for the best. And so yeah. So if it's anything like XCOM, there was the fog of war feature on that. So as you're with XCOM, it was essentially aliens are invading the Earth, and you have control over this this crack team of alien hunters, to the planet. But it was cool. It's like Tony had said, that with these guys, you get to customize each squad member. So when you lose one, you feel it. You're like, oh man, that was Ray Jones, man. I've run him for 17 missions. He was a veteran. He got taken out. But so I don't know if that's the case with this, since you've got like a set crew. But I don't know. I think it looks kind of interesting. Looks more like a mobile game than something I'd play on console.
Right. And then the interesting thing is, as we've seen watching Clone Wars, Dave has built up such a world where you could do a side story like it kind of mentions, these aren't the stories that get told, about the Clone Wars. There's so much, underbranching of storylines that you could do with characters like this, and let the fans sort of build up the lore behind the Clone Wars off show.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would love to, like Sherry was saying, I would love to see this as a series.
I was waiting to see a Disney Plus logo pop up at the end.
I know, right? I was like, oh, it's a game.
Yeah. It's like, what was, oh my God, I'm so bad with this. My brain is just shot anyway, but the, oh my God, the game with, was it Jedi Order or Old Republic? I think it was the Old Republic with Darth Malgus in it.
Oh, right. Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah. Like the cutscenes for that. Like I've sat and I've watched. Like people have stitched together all the cutscenes to create this movie, because like the graphics on that were just, because that's an older game that came out quite some time ago, but the cutscene graphics were next level.
The level of quality in video game and animation graphics, the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run game is essentially a large video game ride. They just live generate the viewpoint you get from the Falcon. And one of the things they announced in Japan is they're actually adding more maps. They're going to tie into the Mandalorian Grogu movie and some of the newer projects where you get into that simulator, and they can put anything up there. You can put up Space Invaders if you really want to, but they've learned, the graphics have gotten so good that you could real time adapt to what the riders, and on your attraction are doing, and make it a giant video game.
Oh my God, Sherry, we got to go.
Let's go.
We got to go to Galaxy's Edge, man. We got
save up.
We got to save a couple of bucks.
Yeah, just a few.
I don't know, because we're going to try to go to Disneyland next year.
Okay.
In October, is that?
Yeah, that's the plan, next October, because then the last one's graduated and we can go.
We'll be free. We'll be free of children.
No, I mean they're coming with us, but
do they have to? I mean,
it's
Disneyland. What would they possibly be?
Well, now that they're
in
older, it's great.
Disneyland.
At least one of them, I can, we can drink. Well, she won't, but I'll drink more than her. But that's okay.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'll have a scouting report for you, because my next set of Crash's Corners is actually, I'm going out to Disneyland for Star Wars night, and I'm going to do a little report from Batuu, Galaxy's Edge, and the Star Wars night event to give you. So take notes when I get home. You're going to love it.
When are you doing that?
I'll be out there May 4th for actual Star Wars Day.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
this year.
Yep.
Like coming up. Oh, yep. All right. Damn.
Like that's around the corner.
For real.
When you,
All
we
right,
said we were
well, I'll
taking
look
2
forward
weeks
to
off, I was like, "Ooh, that fits perfectly in the window." Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Look
that's
forward to seeing it because
right around the
I know.
corner.
Yeah, and they do Nightmare Before Christmas stuff in October too. So
Right.
that's the reason I want to go. I'll go to Galaxy's Edge, of course, but
I have friends out there in California that do they're big on the Nightmare Before Christmas thing, and they say that Haunted Mansion overlay is fantastic. You'll love it.
yeah, that's like my favorite. Second to Star, or that's first before Star Wars.
Yeah,
My Nightmare Before Christmas collection is out of control.
yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Actually, I don't think it's out of control. I think it's just right.
Did you know Revenge of the Sith came out today? 20-year anniversary.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Can we all just do the Matt Damon aging thing? Thinking about that.
Yeah,
I'm already old. I don't feel old, so it's fine.
like you said we weren't going to do it last night, so guess where I went?
Oh,
Oh, good. Did you know?
did you get the Darth Vader popcorn bucket?
I can answer that question.
Well, anyway, he's getting that. I was at our local Cinemark with the Fan Force chapter and the Rebel Legion 50 for, that was like, so at the time we thought this was the end. This was the big we had guys in costumes at doing every TV hit from all the local. Everybody sends their TV crews out to take pictures of the nerds in line. We had people banners in the theaters. We had stormtroopers everywhere. Everybody thought, yeah, there you go.
Nice.
And it was like I told somebody in one interviewed me, it felt like senior year of high school where you thought this was like your graduation, like you were going to move on. This was the end of Star Wars. And then a few years later, oh look, we get another trilogy. Cool, I'm back.
All right. So I was just going over some of
Oh my god, it actually has the sound.
okay, that's cool.
That is pretty cool.
That is very cool. So let's take a look at Andor, shall we? And I was just reading a couple of things by an individual who shall go unnamed. He is one of the people who is tied to the fandom menace, and he is very opinionated about certain things. And one of the things that he said, he didn't like Andor, and I think that that's a fair assessment. Andor season 2 thus far, up until the last episode, was a bit of a slow burn. I think that we were doing some we were doing some world building. We were doing it's a very human story. And I don't mean like the species human. I just mean like it's more about human interaction and emotion rather than space battles, lightsabers, the will of the force, all that. There's a lot of story building here. So definitely a slower pace than even Andor season 1. And I also think that if you haven't seen Andor season 1, you will be a bit lost watching Andor season 2. So if you're interested in watching, I think Andor is an amazing character personally. I like this concept of seeing something outside of the Force. We're seeing, a little bit of that darker political world of Star Wars that's always there. It's one of the pillars that hold Star Wars up. So it's necessary. We just don't get it very often because, I mean, to be honest, it's not as exciting as these fun swashbuckling adventures of space wizards and laser swords. And, so that's the fun stuff. That's one of the other pillars of Star Wars. So there was a scene in, I believe it was the last episode, where we saw an Imperial officer trying to use his position of power and authority to get what he wanted out of a young lady. And this is something that is not new to anything I mean, you know,
People in power.
yeah, men in power, even women in power to a lesser degree, but men in power have been doing that for centuries. The argument currently is whether or not it's necessary to have something like this portrayed in Star Wars. And this individual, you know, he goes on to say what he says, and he is a really big Darth Vader fan, and he's trying to use Vader to justify, you know, or basically to say that he that Vader and the Empire would not have stood for this.
I think this just showed how bad they are. It has nothing to do with Vader himself. I think that's, you know, and it was the way they did it was fine. I mean, I think it went well with the story, with what's happening. That's what I think. It just shows how bad they can be.
I mean, I personally, and you know, a full disclosure to our fans out there, I have not seen this yet, so I'm just, you know, winging it from what I've heard. I mean, you know, we can argue whether or not the morality of the Empire would allow for that type of thing, but let's be honest, you know, if my commander doesn't see what happens, like, there are always going to be, for lack of a nicer term, pieces of shit in war. Like that's just what happens. And you know, even if there was a moral stance against it, even if you knew your boss was going to have a problem with it, well, if you ain't going to find out, people are going to do bad shit. I mean, that's just how it works.
Human nature, right? I mean, you know, people are people. It doesn't matter what uniform they're wearing. You know, people are going to be good. People are going to be shitty. So the comment that was made, you know, he said that, you know, of course, online we have to self-censor ourselves. So he said SA in Star Wars, so sexual assault in Star Wars feels unnecessary. You can portray power dynamics and make the audience hate the Empire in other ways without taking it to such a disgusting place. Vader wouldn't tolerate that shit, nor does the Empire condone it. It has no place in Star Wars, period, unnecessary. So I think I think it's debatable whether or not it's necessary to depict this sort of assault. I feel that we've seen things that could be comparably as bad. I mean, we've seen genocide. We've seen, you know, there's an implied murder of children. You know, we've seen enslaved people. You know, we've seen decapitations. We've seen Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's charred corpses. You know, Princess Leia enslaved and wearing a metal bikini, knowing that she's not wearing any underwear and she is in a den of gangsters. So, I mean, we can infer from that she was not treated with dignity and respect in this place. But so there's been other things in Star Wars that have been questionable and not necessarily kid friendly. So I don't think that's the issue. We try to keep things as in universe on this show as possible. So what I want to address more than anything else is the comment that Vader wouldn't tolerate that shit, nor does the Empire condone it. And I have opinions on this, but I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. Would Vader, if Vader were to have encountered this or been aware of this, what are your thoughts on his reaction? Crash?
Well, first off, I think this individual with a very large following of fans is completely full of shit. And I'm just going to lay that out there. I think the idea that Vader wouldn't condone this, the Empire would not condone this, given how much this individual panders to the worst end of the fandom, I think there's a lot of self-projecting in the Empire on this person's part and his target audience, and the idea that it's like that joke from a World War II movie where the Nazi turns to the other Nazi and goes, "Are we the baddies?"
Mhm.
Of course you fucking are. That is the point of Star Wars. And the idea that there's this moral high, this line of demarcation, but from blowing up Alderaan, enslaving entire planets, but we're part of the Me Too movement is completely laughable. I do think the showrunners of Andor handled it very well. I made some comments on Facebook page just about comparing this depiction to season 2, I think it was, of Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, when the Pegasus meets up with the Galactica and they attempted to rape one of the main characters, who was a Cylon, a human Cylon, a female who was pregnant at the time. And it was like standard practice for them because they had also had other Cylon prisoners, and they didn't think anything of it because they didn't see them as, they didn't have they weren't human, so they didn't have rights. And that show was trying to make a statement about things at the time in the world. I think the fact that, again, I like the way they portrayed this assault without making it trauma porn for the nerds and the creepy guys out there on the internet to watch, because he got
his
he got his ass beat, and that's great. But I like the fact that, like, with Bix, when the driver tells her to come out, she's like, I ain't coming out because you're gonna shoot me.
Right.
She knew, hey, that she fought back is a good message, but also the fact that she didn't fall for the trap, much like Andor in the first season, when those two Morlana cops pull him and they say, he knocked the one guy unconscious. We'll go in and we'll explain everything. No, you're not. The second you give them that gun, they were going to arrest you. So I think, this is where they handled it a very sensitive subject very well. And the overall tone of the show has been trying to talk about what it's like being, they talked about the Ferrex crew are living on this world. They talked about visas and how the Empire is doing a sweep and they're looking for people with, the wrong paperwork.
What's that sound like?
Yeah, let's have a deep dive about what that relates to, and some of the things that we see here about in the news that you go, are we the baddies? We might be. I think Andor handled it very well, and for just part of the overall story that they've been trying to tell from season 1 to season 2 about the experiences of, again, not the space wizards, not the people with magical powers, but these are what real people in the galaxy are dealing with under the Empire.
Right. And it's interesting too, we, like you said, where's that line of ethics, that this individual was talking about, how the Empire wouldn't condone that sort of assault. As we're watching these 3 episodes, we've got Director Krennic and, this board of bad guys sitting around the table. They're literally discussing genocide and how best to execute it,
and how frame it from a public relations, make them hate the Gormans so that nobody really feels bad for them.
Right. Which, and if you look at this on a deeper level, this is very much what the Nazis did to the Jewish population during World War II. We're gonna, like in this, when we're talking about Gorman, these people are, they're like the spiders that they base their livelihood on. So we're gonna make these people seem creepy. So once we do start committing genocide, it's not going to be so bad because the general public didn't like these people, which is exactly what happened during World War II, and which has also happened here today in our society with this demonization of illegal immigrants or undocumented workers, however you want to phrase it. But fascist governments always will demonize a small minority group of the population in order to really galvanize their support and to make it easier to overlook the atrocities that are being committed, because it's like, oh, as long as it's happening to people that don't look like me, then that's okay. So to say that the Empire wouldn't condone its officers committing acts of sexual assault or rape is just incredibly naive and incredibly ignorant, because you have to look at an organization that condones blowing up a planet and displacing people and committing genocide just to get the resources from that planet. I mean, we've heard about the Gorman massacre already, and so we're aware of that, but it seems like
Vader would not have cared.
So, and that's another thing. So yeah, Sherry, so
he would not have cared about
what do you think? And I feel that you're fairly familiar and you know enough about Vader to understand his psyche.
Yeah, just a little.
What do you think Vader would have done had Vader walked in on that?
Had he walked in on that, he obviously, I think he would have choked him out. I mean, to be honest, not because what he was doing, maybe because he was just overstepping Vader himself. I'm not saying he would, do SA. I have no idea.
No,
he doesn't have a weenus, so he can't do that anyway. So, no, I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't know. I don't think he would have.
I think he would have killed them both just to cover up the mess.
Maybe.
The PR mess.
Yeah, I could see that. I
think Vader would have. I think Vader would have.
Just to get rid of that situation.
I don't think because Vader wouldn't have cared about the optics of that situation. So I don't think he would have. I don't think that he would have killed them in order to cover anything up, because he doesn't care. He doesn't. That's a job for the ISB.
It's a mess that he doesn't.
And I think that's why I think he would have killed the officer, because the officer wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, not because he was committing
what he was
a war crime. No, it's because, hey, you're supposed to be out here looking. We're supposed to be taking this planet over, and you're supposed to be looking for illegal workers,
right?
Not raping.
And you're over here looking for stress relief,
right? You're out here trying to get ass. So I'm going to kill you. I mean, he's killed officers for less.
Oh yeah, a lot. For looking at him wrong. I mean, goodness.
Right, and he would have killed her because she was, in his eyes, a bad guy. So she's the enemy. He would not. I don't think he would have cared either way.
I just think he was so far gone, especially now with this timeline. He was definitely.
This is Vader in his prime.
Yeah, so he was definitely far gone.
We're at 4. Was it 4 BBY right now? And this is Vader in his prime.
And don't forget, there's still a galactic Senate. I think I think there is an imaging problem. Like, even when they blew up Jeddah to test the Death Star, they made up an excuse to cut. They didn't say, "Oh, we're testing a super weapon."
Yeah, of course not.
So I think there would have been some spin, like those guys we saw with the trying to shame the Gormans, as it were.
Yeah.
I think, but like I said, would Vader have killed Bix to cover up the? Maybe not, but they would have definitely silenced anyone who would speak to the Senate about what Imperial officers do in the field.
The spin on it would be, well, we killed a cell of rebellion.
They caught an illegal worker. And
and if it would have went this far, we got rid of,
or Palpatine would have just ordered Vader to kill everyone on sight.
Oh, that's true.
Imperial, non-Imperial alike. Vader would have just literally wiped out that entire Imperial squad. If Palpatine wanted that situation contained, then Vader would have conducted an orbital bombardment from his Star Destroyer.
What happened?
And executed everyone.
I mean, she held her own. I think that's very empowering for all people that have been essayed at, or attempted at some point. So I think that's that's what I take away from it. It empowers them to know that you can fight back, or
So speaking as a woman, obviously, your thoughts on this, it's important for you to weigh in. I mean, you're giving a woman's perspective.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think she took it, the best she could.
She fucked him up.
Obviously, this has happened before, starting at the beginning with the dream.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is something that she has trauma.
Well,
with already.
that was that. If you caught it, that guy in the reflection was the scientist who tortured her on Ferrix. She was dreaming of the torturer over and over. It wasn't like a past assault or anything. It was the guy that fucked up her mind.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't assault. He did assault her,
mind, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't a sexual assault. But it was still, So,
yeah.
Tony, I know you haven't seen this yet. Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, no, I think they used it as a platform for today, what's going on in society.
It was a preview.
That's what I'm saying. I think the writers, as we know their issue and their stance pretty much now watching this.
and we have to always remember, and this is
planet at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that I think people like this individual who claims to know so much about Star Wars, and he claims to be the face of the Star Wars fandom, the poster child. It is. I mean, he's doing it to make money. So whether he believes what he's saying or not is irrelevant at this point for him. He's got to be on the edge of controversy to make those dollars and get those clicks. But it's really sad because he was a really, no pun intended, he was a powerful force for the fandom. I mean, he was really at the forefront of the Star Wars fandom, and it's really sad to see that he has gone down this road. He's entitled to his opinion, of course, but
he went down the dark side straight up.
He really did. And for him to say some of the things that he says, and then claim to be this super fan, it's just really ignorant because, again, we talked about how the Empire really wouldn't have cared one way or another. Openly, they're not going to say, yeah, we condone rape. Of course they're not going to do that.
No, of course not.
But had another officer walked in on that, and not even Vader's an extreme. So had just another officer, another lieutenant or a captain or an admiral, Grand Moff Tarkin could have walked in.
I think it just depends. I mean, really, they all have different personalities. So
they do.
Who knows? He might have been like, dude, what are you doing? Slapped him around like Grand Moff would have just smacked him around a bit. Like, get out of here. No, this is not the time.
I think Tarkin would have said, finish quickly. We have more work to do.
You think so? Okay.
And he would have walked out. Yeah, because we have to understand too that with the Empire, they serve the Emperor. Period. They may have individually, they like Krennic clearly has his own agendas. He wants to climb the ladder. Like we see that there's that great scene where Vader says, "Don't choke on your aspirations," which is great. But we have to continue to understand that Star Wars is cautionary tales, always has been, always will be. And Star Wars is always social commentary, always has been, always will be. Like there's no questioning that. The original film, A New Hope, was commentary on war and how, and fascism. It's always about that. It's always about, this is what happens if you allow the leaders and government to go too far. This is what happens. This is what things will devolve into. As we know, the original Star Wars film, the rebels were based off the Viet Cong, and the Empire was based off of us and the British, the colonizers, the occupiers. So in that, we were portrayed as the bad guys. George Lucas saw the American empires being the bad guys. There is always the underlying message of hope in Star Wars, but it's also social commentary, and we're seeing that here. And to think that the Empire would care about what happens to an individual, nobody in the Empire would care that this young woman is being raped by an officer. No one would care about that, because at the end of the day, she was going to be rounded up and probably executed, or that entire planet was going to be completely exploited. Like with what they want to do with Gorman. The guy said it might destabilize the planet. So it's like,
yeah, I want to think, I'm a little more positive.
I
I
think
would think I would think at least one or two would not agree.
And
Maybe
those
stormtroopers, because we've
Mhm.
seen that in the past.
Yeah.
Stormtroopers turn and they leave because they're like, "This is crazy. What the hell are we doing?"
They do, and there's actually
so-
there's a great book about that, about Mara Jade is in this book too, actually, about a squad of stormtroopers that
So
see some things happening they don't like, and they end up going rogue because
So
but that's
I would
they,
like to think
Mhm.
that there's even on that planet, if some of them would have known what was happening,
Mhm.
at least one or two. I'm not saying everyone, but
they do, and they end up leaving and joining the rebellion. So,
so I mean, you never know.
Those people are there. Yes, there are good people in the Empire. There are people that see these atrocities. They do not agree with the stance of the Empire, and they leave if they can.
So,
But if they
I think
can't
that's
get
the
out,
basis of it.
yeah. Tony, what are your thoughts on this?
So I agree with everything pretty much. Knowing the guy who we're talking about here, I'm loath to give him the benefit of the doubt in anything. That being said, I haven't seen it for myself. I don't know the exact words and phrasing and everything. I can see the argument of, hey, like, if nothing else, this could potentially be a PR problem that we don't need. So the Empire wouldn't be okay with it. On principle, whether or not they let it go is a different matter. And I will say, you know what? Compared to some of the other takes that this particular individual has had, this is not the worst one. And if his point, whether he phrased it badly or not, is just to say, I don't need to see that. I don't think we should ever have to see that on our screens, because even though we know it happens in real life, it's a shitty thing that happens in real life. And, hey, if we can get away from having that in this reality, it's a better thing. Okay. I would agree with that standpoint if that's what he's trying to say. But given this guy's previous takes on things, I don't know that that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And it says a lot that, like we were saying, we have to self-filter on YouTube and places like that because for certain keywords that it might alarm people. With the guy's comment and the way he was phrasing it, again, I don't think it was much as he objects to seeing images like that on the screen, because if anyone who's ever been to a con and you look at some of the fan art that gets passed around, there's unfortunately a pocket of this fandom that just sadly they get turned on by this shit. And it says, let's not forget we've how many years we had guys fetishing about the slave Leia, so much so that they had to try to rebrand it to Hut Slayer,
right?
When it's really we know what that was about. That was not an empowering outfit for her. People tried to reverse the narrative on it, but at the end of the day,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. It was very plain. It was, that was Princess Leia was a sexualized slave. Was she assaulted while she was in Jabba's palace? I don't know.
There was one book where they tried to. There was a Tales of the Bounty Hunter. There was a scene where they tried to pawn her off on Boba Fett, and he basically he didn't want nothing to do with it, and he almost gave her like a safe refuge in his room. That's
actually one of my favorite stories from that book, because it was a cool anthology book. It's one of my favorite books. But yeah, you're absolutely right. She was like, if you come at me, I'm gonna fight back. And he was like, because he was, even though he was getting paid, they had a conversation. I believe the two of them had this conversation about morals and ethics, because in that book, Boba Fett has a code of conduct. He does not believe in sexual assault or rape. He is a law-abiding citizen for the most part. And she asked him, well, how can you work for Jabba hunting down, the essentially the good guys? And he said, because I'm working for the lawfully, legally elected government of the galaxy. So he was technically on the side of law and order.
Right.
And, he still had kind of a skewed view of that, but his moral compass was very, very rigid, but he still knew right from wrong when it came to assaulting, or violating other people. He wasn't about to violate Leia, even though she was given to him.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot. Even George Lucas, created that outfit and that scene, the whole thing with Jabba. But it also showed, for what essentially, we always say Star Wars was for kids. There's ways of depicting that kind of behavior without having to be graphic about it. And I think Andor did even for a more mature Star Wars show, did a nice job of not giving in to the tawdriness. You don't have to show the violation of it, what's being done to explain this is bad, this should not happen to people, but there are bad people who do these things.
Right. And I think that's important. I think that if we're using Star Wars as social commentary, I think it's important to not shy away from certain things. And like this individual, again, he's our Voldemort, basically. Like he said, it's unnecessary in Star Wars, but I've always found it curious in our society how we shy away from anything sexual, but we embrace violence. Even growing up, if there's a little lovey-dovey scene in a movie, even if it's just, like making out or implied, love making or whatever, we cover up the kid's eyes. Oh, don't look. But if we're watching Star Wars, I'm cool with letting them see stormtroopers get blown up and people getting decapitated. And, again, Uncle Owen, and Aunt Beru getting fucking completely thermal detonated.
Well, even in this, he shot someone right in her face.
Yeah, point blank. So why is it in our culture? And I mean, we can try to answer this if we want, but then that's a whole philosophical thing.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered, why is it that we're okay with violence, with depictions of violence, but we're not okay with depictions of sexuality, sexual
in its purest form.
Right.
When it's not, yeah.
Even if it's not like a sexual violation, if it's just two people engaged in the becoming the beast with two backs, I'm not talking about graphic pornographic sex. I'm talking about on-screen nudity. Again, nudity is natural, and we cover the eyes of the children for the nudity, but we allow them to view the violence. And again, we're seeing and this individual on Twitter making these comments, he's a perfect example of that, of what this culture is. He's a fan of Star Wars. In Star Wars, we have seen countless acts of violence. I'm sure we've had people
Well, we've had heads come off of freaking clone troopers.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the idea without getting into the graphic of sexuality. Remember the Acolyte, the idea that May and Osha have two mothers, however they were created,
right,
was such an affront to people on social media, certain people on social media, that they just completely derailed. Just the story was no good. This was, quote, bad writing. Why? No. There was nothing overtly sexual about it. It's just they got two moms. So what?
But all of the death and destruction and murder and mayhem,
cool. That's fine.
That was okay.
That's fine. Yeah. So I think we need to question, like, where are these lines drawn and who's drawing them and why? Tony, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, sir? I'm sorry.
Just the short answer to your question, without going down a deep rabbit hole, is Judeo-Christian morality values, and more importantly, in Western culture, Puritan values. That's the short answer. And I can deep dive a lot longer than that, but that's
that's another hour. That's a whole other show. That's a whole other show.
But that's a whole different show.
Yeah. All right.
But
So
I know we are part of like, education here a little bit.
yeah.
So since we're talking
So
about this topic, the National Sexual Assault Hotline is 1-800-656-4673. So if anybody's out there and they feel that they need to call someone because something happened, any individual, I feel like I should put that out there.
Thank you. What was the number again?
1-800-656-4673, and that is a 24-hour, 7 days a week hotline. And that's a national hotline. So
Okay. Thank you.
right now it's still up.
I guess we can kind of wrap up this part of the Andor review. If I ask you guys, what do you think?
Yeah.
One of the things I heard on a lot of social media this week after the show aired was this particular episode, should it have come with a warning? I remember the Battlestar Galactica episode. They came out of commercial and it had one of those blank screens with
Disclaimer.
this episode's going to have viewer discretion advised. Do you think this particular, not the whole series, but this particular episode, should it have had a warning?
I don't think that it would have been bad to have a warning, or even have like in the credits or shortly after the episode ended, having that crisis hotline number there. I think that would have been they may go back and edit it. They may go back and add it, because I think sexual assault can be triggering if it's depicted, if it's something that has happened to someone. I mean, yeah, I personally think that having a disclaimer, especially on Disney, I think that would be a good idea. I think that would be a very good idea.
One for this episode, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean, we're just talking about it, but still,
It could still be triggering.
it's still triggering, but it might help someone. So,
Crash, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that?
I think it does. I think it would have helped. I was spoiled before I watched the show the morning after it dropped, and I did a quick check of our Swarzy Curious and Star Wars Safe Space Facebook pages, and I right away I saw all the reviews were talking about this particular scene, which is a shame because there's a lot of good content in the other two episodes and the third that's being overshadowed by that one scene and the obvious social media churning like we're doing right now. But
sad.
I think a quick warning at the top of the episode would have been good, because even if being spoiled about what was going to happen, like I said, when that guy in her dream showed up, I was like, damn, they're doing it right away. And then as soon as I realized who it was, I was, okay, that's not it. But like the whole episode, I was like, that scene's coming. That's like the monster at the end of this book. I was like, okay, the scene's going to happen eventually. I was waiting to see how they were going to depict it. But yeah, a little warning at the start wouldn't have been bad.
Okay.
And you know what? And I agree. And so, like you said, that scene is overshadowing, 3 pretty deep episodes that are dealing with some pretty deep content. And one thing I want to bring up that I thought was really powerful, and it was maybe I don't know, not terribly subtle, but Mon Mothma at the end dancing.
Poor thing.
With dancing with no joy on her face at all. Like the weight of the galaxy is on her shoulders, and she was just going through the motions. She's probably a little drunk.
Well, her daughter was not great.
Her daughter, wow, that was.
And well, again, it was like a Game of Thrones type of deal, but
Yeah,
like, I'm gonna marry him anyway. Okay, dummy.
Yeah, so maybe he's going to turn out like a Joffrey type character.
I don't know, but he's going to be awful to that woman or to that girl.
But Mon Mothma, she's one of these. I'm glad that we're seeing more of her, because the first time we see her is in Jedi, I believe, right? Return of the Jedi, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she delivers her famous line, many Bothans died, and we don't really see. And again, we talked about, Sherry and I, we were talking about this, how like her and Padme and a few others were basically the original architects of the rebellion.
And I had no idea about that. So that's
Bail Organa. He was part of that crew. Who was the Rhodian senator? I can't remember their name. I think he ended up getting assassinated during the Clone Wars.
Oh, Padme's uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Iroh, right?
Anno.
Anno, yeah. So, Mon Mothma is very much alone in the galaxy right now. I mean, she's not, I mean, figuratively alone, because
Right.
many of her co-conspirators are
Mm.
they're gone. Not Bale yet at this point. Oh yeah, yeah, he is. No, not yet, because we're 4 years.
Yeah,
4 years. Yeah.
and we don't even know if she and Bale have teamed up yet. She's mostly been paired up with Luthen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
the thing
Luthen,
and I'm interested in finding out is when does Luthen no longer in the picture, as it were? Because we know in A New Hope we don't see him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part of this season I am interested, is that Luthen's been portrayed as sort of the mastermind of this rebellion and pulling all these different factions together. But like the Rogue One crew in A New Hope, where'd they go?
Well, I mean, we know what happens to.
Yeah, and that's the part I want to see what happens to Luthen is where's he go?
So and that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my next question. So what are we most excited or worried about with Andor season 2? So I guess that's one for you, Crash.
The thing I'm most looking forward to is sort of like I said, the building blocks of the rebellion we know. Being a big fan of the rebellion, Mon Mothma was sort of a minor figure when she came out in Jedi. She was sort of the replacement for Leia as the figurehead of this rebellion. You know, like in that briefing, I remember as a kid thinking, "Who's this lady?"
Right, we had no idea.
Right.
Yeah, we had no idea the role that she played.
Yeah, we find out later she was a senator who was literally teaming up with Leia's mother.
Yeah.
Originally, when they were first worried about Palpatine overreaching and Bail Organa, and if had Padme lived, it would have been interesting to see.
Oh my God.
Her as a rebellion leader with her husband on the other side. But I think, and I think with this season of Andor, I'm looking forward to seeing how the pieces parts. Like I keep saying when we talk about this, I can appreciate a show like Rebels and Andor existing in the same universe timeline, because they're just telling different branches of the same narrative of their small groups that are starting to act out against the Empire, and eventually they're going to have to come together as a bigger team. Otherwise, the Empire's just going to, like they say, you hear the line in the trailer, the monster's going to come for us all. Yeah,
they get swallowed up. And I do like that we're, because we're going to be, in a few weeks we're going to be hitting Rebels, and I do like that Andor is going along like parallel to that, because we'll get to see more of the action in Rebels, but again, it's still two sides, of the same rebellion here, and so, Sherry, what about you?
Well, I don't know what I want to see next, because this is new to me. So, I'm just excited to see what's going to happen with everybody, to be honest. I do like how it's before the movies, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that. So I can kind of follow along and see where everybody progresses. But I think one of the things I did like, it was silly, but seeing Queen Amidala's headpiece in that room that she
and Plo Koon's face mask.
Yeah. There's probably more little tidbits in there. I like stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
That place is built as an Easter egg factory, and they're not necessarily supposed to be. Snips and I were having a great conversation. When we were watching this week. They focused in on that headpiece. We, the audience, immediately connected with Amidala because we saw her wearing that headpiece in the movie.
Yeah.
At Galaxy's Edge, I think that's one of the items available for sale in Doc Ondor's shop, like for kids to wear. Kids can wear like small costume pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that in Luthen's shop, I was kind of laughing, because it's like, you assume as an audience, oh, that's Padme's headpiece, or it could just be a Naboo fashion piece, from anybody. Same thing with the Keldor Plo Koon mask pieces right next to it, or the stone pieces that that are from Star Wars Rebels of the star maps for the Jedi Temple. Now, mind you, there could be even in Rebels and Clone Wars, there's iconography of those images all across the Jedi Order throughout history. But when we see those stone tablets, as fans, our head immediately takes us back to Rebels, where we first saw them.
And so it's going to be cool, like when because you haven't seen season 1 of Andor yet, Sherry. So
I only saw a little bit of it.
Right. So as we're moving closer to that in the timeline, it's going to be, because we're going to end up we're watching Andor season 2 now, but we're going to end up rewatching it as we're progressing on with the show. And it's going to be very interesting, because in season 1, when we first see that shop crash, like you said, it's an Easter egg factory, and there's just like, you've got to like frame by frame it, and like, oh my God, that's from this, and that's from this, and that's from this. And it's just, I love the art direction. I love that they're putting those things in there, because it's supposed to be like an antique store. And so it's got all of these artifacts that sometimes you recognize, sometimes you gloss over it until you watch it the second time. You're like, wait a minute, where was that when I watched the first time?
In the back room, there are 3 of the Shankara stones from Temple of Doom.
Yep, I remember that from. Again, I remember that from the first.
For the audience to make the connection. It has nothing to do with Star Wars, but you just look at it's for us to look in the background and go, oh, there's that, there's that, there's that.
Well, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, R2D2 and C3PO are on the frame that's holding the Ark. So I mean, it's Lucas and Spielberg are so good about, and then now that's the legacy, that is the legacy, is to hide these things, and even from different franchises, like when we were watching Skeleton Crew, there's all these little Monkey Island references throughout, and Pirates of the Caribbean references throughout, and you see them, but it's like you have to watch it like 5 times, and then it jumps out at you.
Yeah, but. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be cool.
Sherry, you had mentioned something while we were watching the show that I thought was pretty interesting too. You would, because you really aren't aware of Andor, and picking him up in season 2 like this is challenging. But one of the first things you said was, he's supposed to be a good guy, right? Like you weren't 100%. Yeah, if he was a good guy or a bad guy.
So I mean, whatever.
No, but I think that's good. I think that because he is very much like an anti-hero.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's a good guy who's doing bad things for a good reason.
Yes.
For a good cause, because he's kind of he will murder the shit out of you if he needs to. And but again, we'll see that. Like, our first experience with him was in Rogue One, and I think that's like one of the first scenes.
First things he does, yeah.
One of the first things he does is he takes out his buddy, because I mean, there's reasons behind that. But
and the password, is when, on the first episode, when the Sinar scientist was, helping him steal the ship, she said the password for the hangar was Kafrine.
Mm-hmm.
That was the name of the moon we first see Andor on in Rogue One.
Yeah, I
love the little word plays that they can throw in that tie us to other parts of, even within Andor's timeline. It's like you hear that name and it's an immediate connection from one show to the other.
I love it. Tony, you haven't seen it yet, so any hopes, dreams, fears about Andor season 2?
I mean, so for the 2 of you who've seen season 1, Luthen's speech.
Yeah.
To my mind, like, that is more prophecy than it is anything else. There's a line in that speech where he says, "I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see." And like, to my mind, like that one sentence tells me he's not coming out of this. There's a reason why we don't see him outside of this series.
He potentially meets a grisly end.
Yeah. But he's accepted that. And honestly, like, seeing a character like this, who is just, and I won't spoil the entire speech because Jerry, I mean, it's just something that, like, it's gonna hit you hard when you see it.
Okay.
But just that speech and the life that he is living, like, he's probably in my top 5 favorite characters in all of Star Wars just because of that alone.
Oh, well, I'll have to watch it.
And I am eager to see the way the rest of his story plays out. Just because there are moments, like even through the Clone Wars, which we're watching now, where we see, these characters who are struggling, going through a war, and yet they make those moments to find happiness, to find something to fight for. And this character is basically saying, listen, like, the fight is all I have. Like there is no end game for me.
Yeah.
This is just what it is. And it doesn't matter. I'm doing it anyways. And there's just an amount of respect that I have for that I can't even begin to describe. So
and
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cool.
And when Cassian was talking to that young engineer who was helping him out, I can't remember her name, at the very beginning, and he told her, you're finally home, knowing yourself. This is who you are. It's like that. It's showing Andor's level of commitment to the cause. He's not just a mercenary. He's not just a hired thug. He's committed to this, and I really like that. And Marva, we got to see her picture, which I thought was really nice. That was a nice touch. And Sherry, when you hear Marva's speech too, it's like, whoo, that's going to be the one that's going to make you want to go out in the streets and riot.
All right, well, I got to watch it because I already want to do that. No, I'm just
and the thing is, we know Andor in his past life as a smuggler or whatever you want to call it was a fast talker. What is interesting in this season already is you're seeing what was the kid's name? Nemec, his manifesto about what rebellions need and what rebellions do. You can see him adopting some of that language, that whole thing about, you're coming back to yourself. Whether you make it out of here or not, you've already won.
Mm-hmm.
That's straight out of that Nemec kid's manifesto about the rebellion. So he's already embraced some of the talking points he read in that book and applying it in his smuggling spy trade to convince people to act against their best interest sometimes. That engineer, if, like she said, she needed a 12-minute head start because she wants to survive this. And it's like saying, well, if you make it, great. If not, you still got to follow through for the cause. And that's a very brave thing to tell somebody.
It is. But I think she was even, because she said, basically I think she said, well, if I die today, will it be worth it? Will it have been worth it?
Right.
So yeah. So I love it. It's a little bit slower paced than what we're used to in Star Wars, but I think it's one of those pillars that's kind of important. I'm excited to see more Saw Gerrera. As time goes on, I start to relate to him more and more. All things considered, I think that he's another one who does very, very bad things for the right reasons. But man, and Forrest Whitaker is just a fucking amazing actor anyway, and he is Saw Gerrera. I can't imagine. I know who's the voice actor in the Clone Wars for Saw.
Oh, Keeper of the Holocron. Get on that one.
Working on it.
Because he does an outstanding job.
Mm-hmm.
But Forrest, man.
And we saw the seeds of what Saw Gerrera will become when we were watching Clone Wars.
Right. He loses his sister.
And you could tell, again, he had that cockiness about him. He thought he was going to be the leader, and his sister was probably the better choice. She was obviously the better choice, but I like I said, when we were watching those episodes, it's interesting to see where the rebellion would have been had Steela lived, and could have been Saw's better half.
Right. And she was that counterbalance for him, and he was already very, very militant leaning. She was that counterbalance. And then when Ahsoka murdered her, No, Ahsoka didn't murder her. She tried. She tried to save her. She really did. I think Ahsoka was broken up about that. But
Well, I mean, it was a fight. So, I mean, she did try to save her.
yeah, it was. I mean, she fell off a cliff. It wasn't even her fault. The hand was outreached. It was actually a freak accident. I mean, she was
Pretty much.
good.
And without, can we just say a prayer for our one friend from Ferrix, who I won't name because I don't want to ruin it for Tony, but first episode, man, you can't break my heart like that.
Yeah.
I'm probably watching it tonight. We'll see.
Yeah, watch it tonight. It's if you have time. It's each episode is about what 45-ish minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not a long watch. It's the first episode is a bit of a slog, but I think it's worth it because we get a good payoff in episode 3. So get through episode 1 and 2.
And a banger of a dance track. Can we
banger of a dance?
I know. What's up with anyway?
Right. I'm
That's
asking Spotify. I'm asking
Spotify. Damn, they're
Spotify.
jamming.
Right. We need that
ain't no
DJ
party
droid.
like a Chandrilla party.
Yeah, no shit, man.
Oh,
we
shit.
need a DJ droid in our life.
I don't think I've ever heard music in Star Wars except for in the cantina, which was not that.
Well, and it's funny because in season 1, I have this. We have the soundtrack we listen to in the car on road trips. And it snips at me. There's the same title track, Niamos. That remember that beach planet that Andor got arrested on? They use that same melody, different time. Like the first one is like a straight up like a nightclub, a darker town. Then there's in Mon Mothma's place, they do it again, but in more of a lighthearted garden party. This was straight up dance party.
This was rave.
And it's the same melody, and I think they give it a different track name, but it's the same
slaps, man.
Just
it's
different. Yeah, and
it sounded like some really cool, like European, like techno club type music.
Right.
But it's agreed. It was a banger for sure.
Shit, I'm gonna put that on the Jeep.
Yeah, we need to get that on Spotify immediately.
It's already the soundtrack for season 2 is already out. The first 3 episodes. That is the most popular track. Snip showed me. It is the most popular track by far downloaded already.
Yeah, without a doubt. So it's interesting to note too that I believe, if I am not mistaken, and I may be, we're going to be seeing with Andor, we're going to be seeing 3 episode blocks each week over the next 4 weeks. It's 12 episodes in the season. And I believe each 3 episode block advances the story by a year until we get up to BBY 0, I think. So we were at BBY 4 here. So next week, I believe we're going to get BBY 3.
And I love the fact that this show pays more attention to the Star Wars, the official timeline, BBY, more so than Tommy does. Because at the top of the show, when you always try to explain how Star Wars time works, I love how the letters just pop. I was like, okay, Tommy's going to love that. Because that's you, man. You're all about the day and time.
I love it.
And now I know it because of that.
And now you know.
Battle.
So there you go. Hopefully our show educated folks.
Tony, you got some info for us on the Saw Gerrera.
Yeah. So the voice actor's name is Andrew Kishino. He did the voice of Saul not just in Clone Wars but also in Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And he also expands out and does a few different voice roles in Visions.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, we need to look at Visions too, because I know there's I don't think I've seen the second one. The first one was great, but I haven't seen the second one yet, I don't think. So Clone Wars season 6, we're going to wrap things up here in a couple minutes. We're going to be diving into Clone Wars season 6 next. It is very much the beginning of the end. We've only got after that, we've only got one more season left. Both seasons are very short. But they're very good. I mean, these two. Season 7 is arguably the best season of Clone Wars. Arguably, people can debate that if they want to. Season 4, I think, is one of the best seasons too. But people, season 7 is just, it hits hard. It hits really, really hard. So we're going to be diving into that. No homework. Because we're just going to be chit-chatting about season 6 when next we meet. But then after that, if you want to get a head start, check out season 6 now if you want to. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's very good. It's very, very good. We're gonna get more Ahsoka, more leaning towards the Empire as we get closer and closer to Order 66.
Ugh.
And then it just all that culminates in episode 7, or not episode, but in season 7. So
Okay.
we're gonna have the Night of 1,000 Tears, which so more Mandalorian action. We've got it's just so good, so good. And then oh god, I love Star Wars. Okay, so we're gonna wrap things up before we head out. We're gonna do our obligatory pimping here, but does anybody have anything else they want to touch on?
Not
Go ahead.
really.
No, but my thing, like I said, I'm going to be heading out to Disneyland to do some Crash's Corner videos. Those got a good reaction from the C2E2 ones. Give you guys a preview of what to expect when you finally book that trip to Batu.
Yeah.
So,
You know what? If you have the bandwidth for it,
mhm.
at some point, because you're a busy guy, you do stuff. If you could put together like a fun, like how to video, because you've been to Disney a lot,
Mhm.
so you know the ins and outs. You know exactly how to book, what to book. I know Disney can be very confusing in terms of getting on some of the attractions,
Sure.
standing in certain lines. There's certain virtual check-ins. It's a whole thing, and it can be very, very intimidating for people. I'm one of them. So like, if you, again, in whatever spare time you happen to have, if maybe you could put together something like a little guide to help people navigate, the swamp that is booking a Galaxy's Edge vacation to Batu.
You read my mind. I'm already kind of working on some Cliff Note idea. Yeah, I'm going there with my family. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna go to Star Wars night. My dad even bought it. He wanted me to dig out my old X-wing costume for him. I was like, "You're not putting my X-wing costume on, Dad. It's not happening." Mostly because flying with it would be such a pain. But I was, so we got him some fun Star Wars apparel to wear. We're gonna get them all decked out, and him and Mom in their little scooters. They're gonna look like Klieg Lars just trucking along.
That's
so
cool. That's
So
cool.
yeah, I've already got some ideas in mind. I'm gonna put together some stuff. We're gonna shoot some stuff on our 2 days in Disneyland in California. Just a quick teaser for you. California, Disneyland has Galaxy's Edge, whereas in Florida they have it at Hollywood Studios. So it's in a different park.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's why it's all
Nuggets of
confusing on the
information.
website.
What's that?
Nuggets of information.
Sherry, what was it you said? I'm sorry.
No, nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm drunk.
Oh, you are not.
I'm not.
You are not. You're a teetotaler. You never drink a drop. Right? No. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you for joining us. Before we head out, we want to do that. What the hell is that?
It's not me.
What was all that? Sounded like someone was like opening a carton of cookies or something. Now I want cookies.
I think I was tearing a page out of my notebook. You might have heard that.
Oh yeah. Whatever mic you're using picks up everything. Like, is it just on your? Is it like on your?
It's on my laptop. Yeah.
Your laptop mic is really good because it picks up like every time you type, it picks that up and it picks up what you just tore. So that's a good mic. That's a good laptop mic. Usually they're not that good. So I thought you were using an external mic. So well done.
No, not yet.
All right. So head on over to our website, circleofnerds.com/ the SWS show. And if you want some of that sweet merch that Tony was showing off there, and we've got our shirts on as well, circleofnerds.com/merch for all of your Swarzy Curious needs. And speaking of Swarzy Curious, that is also the name of our Facebook group. So head on over to Facebook and just look for Swarzy Curious. Follow us on all the social medias at the SWS show. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, all that fun stuff. We're going to be doing some blogging. So you can head over to circleofnerds.com/blogs. and BLOGS, and read our newest blog where we talked about, basically recapping the events of Star Wars Celebration Japan. So we're not going to have like a new blog every week, but from time to time we'll have some, and there's some other really, really good blogs up there from years past that have been buried because we haven't had the blog section up in quite some time. So head on over there, check it out, and let us know what you think. So thank you again for tuning in this week, as always. And of course, we want to do a very special thank you to all of our active duty military members and veterans for their service and sacrifice. And like we do and like to say always, if no one does anything nice for you, make sure you do something nice to yourself. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye.